Okay. Zok the head of the Gemara. So the last thing we learned yesterday was a machlokes between Meir and Abelazar if a husband has a problem with his wife having to go to a chacham and be shoyel on a neder. If he would have such a problem, then even if she was matir the neder, he still doesn't want her, and therefore the T'nai would still say that they're not married, there's no kedushin. But if he doesn't mind, if his wife is shoyel on a neder, then it's not an issue. Then the Gemara brought a third sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, who made a difference between a woman who makes a neder sheyadu b'rabban. A woman who makes a neder sheyadu b'rabban is more brazen because it's a neder that cannot be overturned. And the Gemara brought him a korah. How do we know that a neder cannot be overturned if it was made b'rabban? The Gemara said it was from Vayhikom b'nei Yisroel. And Yisroel did not kill the Gevonim, ki nishbu lahem nesiyei ha'eda. Because the nesiyei ha'eda swore to them that they'd leave them alive. The Kama Rabbin, how many people do there have to be there for it to be considered a neder Rabbin? Rav Nachman Yitzchak Omar, Nachman Yitzchak says, Shloisha. How do you know? Because it says, V'isha kishia dava yamim Rabbin, a woman who sees dam for many days, and we dash in yamim means shnayim, Rabbin means Shloisha. Rabbi Yitzchak Omar Asor, Rabbi Yitzchak says it means 10 people. Because Eda Ksivbu, it says Eda, and we know an Eda refers to 10 people. Right? It says Nishbulam Nesiyah Ha'eda, and we know an Eda from Adas Koyrach, from Adas Koyrach, it is Eda Hara Zois, and Yeshua and Kalev were not Eda Hara, they were good people, so the remaining 10 Meraglim were referred to as an Eda. Ramei Omer, Kol Neder Shetzorach Hakiras Chacham, Lo Yachzir. Any neder that requires a Hakiras Chacham, Lo Yachzir, he could never take her back there. Abelazar says, Lo Asru Tzorach, Ela Mipnei She'enit Tzorach. The only reason why they answered a woman who's Tzorach Hakiras Chacham is not because a person wouldn't want his wife to be shoyel on another. Abelazar holds we're not concerned with that. It's Elot Nation Yitzhar. We're afraid that if she makes a neder that he could be mefer, he'll say, "I didn't know that I could be mefer. And had I known that I could be mefer, I would have never given her the get." And that will be makalko. Her children will be makalko her, because here she got married with the get, and he's now saying, "I never would have given the get had I known that I could be mefer." And therefore, Dr. Abelazar, not only will a neder that can be dealt with a furah, not only that will we not allow him to take his wife back, but even if it was a neder that needs shelas chacham. And Meir holds that a person doesn't have a problem if his wife goes to the chacham to get a heter, and therefore he was concerned because of kilkel. A man might say, had I known I can get Sheilas Chacham, had I known she could be matter the nether, I would have never divorced her. But the Belazar, he doesn't want her to do that. So he'll never allow her to be shoyel on the nether. So he can't say, had I known she could be shoyel, because he wouldn't want it to be shoyel. Rava wants to say a completely new shot. We had a machlokes at the top of Daf Ayin Daled Amud Aleph, that if a woman was mater her nedarim after the kedushin al t'nai, we had a machlokes if her kedushin is chal or not. The Gemara wanted to know what the machlokes was. So the first chapter we just finished was the machlokes is whether or not someone would want a wife who makes nedarim and then has to go shoyel on another. Rava wants to offer a new suggestion. Hacha be'isha chashuva skina. It's the type of discussion that we're having is about a woman who's a chashuva wife, meaning she comes from a very prestigious family, who he wants to be married into that family. And therefore, the Omar is going to say, "Lo nicha li the itzer b'krei se'ah." I don't want to give her a get, because if I give her a get, now I can no longer marry anybody else in her family, because it'll either be a choish grushasoi, it'll be aim grushasoi, all of the women in her family are now related to him. And so he doesn't want such a kedushin because it's going to mess him up, because now he will no longer be able to marry anybody in that family. As Rashi says, Bisha Chashuva, Bas Gedolim, this woman who was the Nadranis happened to have come from a very prestigious family. Even if he doesn't really care if his wife would be shoyl on another, in this case, he said, I don't want to keep this woman, but the get namilo nichel the mesfala. I don't want to give her a get either. The itzer beimo b'chaysa. So therefore, even though she could be shoyl on another, one brisa holds that it won't be a good kedushin because it's something that he doesn't want as well. In fact, Gemara, ihachi sefer the katanit. The brisa that we quoted earlier, now we're going to quote the sefer of the brisa, and it says if the tables are turned, and he was the one who made the neder, and she didn't like him for that, and then he was the one who went to the chacham, or he had samum, and there was a tanai in the kedushin that only if he doesn't have any mum, and he had a mum, and then he went to a doctor, and he got it healed. Mikudeshes. Once again, it's a man's world. When he makes it tanai, when he makes it tanai, there's a problem. The tanai is foul. But when she makes it tanai, she's mikudeshes. In fact, the more listening to any mikudeshes, it should be any mikudeshes. Let her tanai work as well. Let's get there first around. Zok to Gemara, and say that the reason why she doesn't want someone, even if he can be shoyal on another, it's because he's from a very chashuva family. The Amra, she could say the same thing. Lo nichali, the itzer b'krevei. I don't want to become usher to his krevim. So if he gives me a get, now I will not be able to marry anybody else in his family. And I want those options. Zok to Gemara, there's a very big difference between a reason for which he would reject her versus a reason for which she would reject him. A woman is happy to have any type of husband just so she could be married. Like Rish Lakish once taught us, we learned this in Yavomis, the Amar Rish Lakish tav l'meisav tandu milameisav armadu. She would rather be with somebody than to live alone. Rashi is guf shnayim, two bodies together. Mashal Hedidu, it's a simple mashal. I'm much better living with somebody than sitting as an almana. Abaye used to say, "The mishumshina gavra kurse becharasa rami." Even if my husband is a short little guy, not someone who I'd be so proud of. Mashal Hedidu, mishabala katan kanamala. Her husband's small like an ant. Still, Kursa b'charasa Rami, kisa her seat, ben hasaris, she could sit amongst the sarim, against the fancy married ladies. B'nois chorin, moishiva, kloimer gamli, bal kamachem. Basically, I could say, I could sit with the married women. So there's a certain reason why she wants to be able to be part of the married club. Rav Papa Amar, the nafso gavra, even if her husband does a malacha of dealing with wool, which smells, it's a horrible job, still she's happy. She'll be so happy to see him that she'll go to the end of the gate, she'll go to her porch to greet him, to sit with him. She's not embarrassed as they come sit with me on the porch, on the stoop. She's still proud to advertise that this is my husband. Rabashi Amar, the Kolsa Gavra, meaning Mishpachas Doifi, he comes from a very not respectable family. Nevertheless, she'll still say, Loi boy tal kidra. She'll be so happy that he's married to her, she won't even ask him for simple, inexpensive beans for food. Talvachi adosher shumaichel kal, it's a light Michael, ben chazar kiskol kach, doesn't even cost much. Even that, even that she won't ask him for. Just call me your wife. I just want to be married. Zok Gemara, why? Tana, v'chulon, why do they want these husbands? For one reason only. Mizana is for toilets b'balayim. They want to be able to sleep around and have a good time. The problem is, if they have a baby, if they're expecting, everyone's going to know that they were mizana. So to have a husband, no matter what type of husband he is, she can at least get away with doing this and blaming the pregnancy on her husband. V'chulon mizana is for toilets b'balayim. Kol elu shabalayim shveilim. Umaris lem chiba. All of these husbands who really aren't so desirable, yet these women are showing love to them. It's a fake, it's a phony, it's a fraud. They're just using them. They don't care who their husband is, as long as it affords them the opportunity. The Mishnah said any physical mum that passes a kohen will also be a mum that could be objectionable to someone who makes a tanai that he doesn't want a mum, or according to one shot, if he married her stomach. Tana, in addition to the mum that apply to kohanim, there are additional mum that apply to women that would disqualify a marriage that would not pass somebody from kohen. And what are those? Zeya. Rashi means Zaya, she's always perspiring. Vishuma, she has a wart. V'reich and she has bad breath. Freik the Gemara, are you saying that these would not disqualify a kohen from doing avodah? But none we learned in Bechoros, Hazakon, Ol, Bachayla, V'hamezuam. What's a mezuam? Rashi says, because the Gemara believes that Zeya, sweaty, bad breath, the Adam in a person b'chlam mazuam would be called mazuam. So it's already included in the list that's referring to kohanim. Utanan mumim melu, and we learned about these mumen bein kavun. Say if they stayed the whole time, bein noivin. Say if they come and go, psulun ba'adam. They'll still passel not a behema for a carbon, but they will passel a kohen to be able to do a voida. Amar Beis B'chanina like kasha kan b'zei iveres. It depends what type of zaya we're talking about. If it goes away by itself, then it will be mutter. If it doesn't go away by itself, then it will be a mum. Rav Ashi Omar, zaya amazuam karamis. You're asking me a kasha from zaya to mazuam. You're assuming that when it says mazuam in the Mishnah, referring to the mum of kahanim, it means these things, someone who's sweaty, someone who has bad breath. So Rashi, lav rumya, it's not a kasha. Mizuam, lav rumya, mizuam gufa mesriach, uva adam nami posel. A mizuam, his body smells. That's tak apostle. Aval zeya, the adam, when a person is sweaty, ain't a posel for kahana. That would not disqualify a kohen from doing a voida, kedegatani yasifu alei. That's only by marriage. It's something that would be objectionable to a person to live with such a woman. So Mazum Amar Rabasham Isaiah Mazum Karamis, Hazum Gaba Kohanim, thereby Kohanim, Afshula Avra. It's possible that he could temporarily mask those symptoms, the Kahuya de Chamra. In other words, it's a temporary covering. It's what the Europeans think that cologne accomplishes. It doesn't, but it's what they think cologne accomplishes. The it's some type of weakened wine. So he could put some cologne on to mask the BO until his avoid is over. He can keep peppers in his mouth, which also temporarily cover his bad breath. It's like chewing gum when you have bad breath without dealing with the core issues. Rashi says, she can't be chewing gum the whole time. So a woman who has this condition where she has bad breath, even though she could mask it temporarily, you wouldn't be able to remain married to her. Because you're with her the entire time. Actually, out of this Gemara prompts a shaila if one is allowed to use mouthwash on Shabbos. So Rav Moshe Pashkun's Avada, you're allowed to, because it's not called it's not called a refuah. It's not called a refuah because a mouthwash doesn't really deal, even the ones that advertise don't really deal with the core issue of the bad breath. It often comes from decay, which requires a lot more than just mouthwash. It's just a temporarily covering up the bad breath, so that's allowed to be used on Shabbos. I don't understand why people would need deodorant on Shabbos anyway. If you eat herring, you automatically have good breath. So why would you need that? Why would you need anything else? Zok to Gemara, Hai Shuma Heichadam. What is this wart that we were talking about a moment ago? That is something that would be a woman. Eid is basar. If it has hair inside it, then hachavacha pasra. Even for a kohen, it will pasra. Idalois basar, and if it doesn't have hair in it, if it's a big one, then regardless, it would be a mum. And so what type of wart is only an issue for a wife, but not for a kohen? The Tanya B'lut, Shuma sheyesh basar, a wart that has hair in it. Harez a mum, that's a mum. Ein basar, if it does not have hair in it, then gedola, if it's large, harez a mum. Ketana, if it's small, then ein zamum. Bezo gedola. What defines a large wart? Pirush of Shimon Gamliel ad ki iser talki. Well, the thing is like the size of a dime, which is like an awfully large wart. Does the article say how big an iser talki is? I think it's the size of a dime. He doesn't say.
There's a silver coin.
He doesn't say. Amar Yosy.
Silver coin. 3/4 square inches.
3/4 of a square inch. Okay, that's a little bit bigger than the dime. It sounds like a nickel. Okay. Amar Yosy Bachanina. You know why this wart is a problem for her, but not a problem for a kohen? It's because by medis al padachta. It's a wart that's on her forehead. So Rashi, it's a small wart and it doesn't have hair in it. But the problem is it's on her forehead. That's really a place where it could be objectionable. Fact Gemara, padachta, if it was on her forehead, how could he say that if he finds this wart, he makes a tanayam and she doesn't have a mum, rav and a he saw it. If it's on her forehead, how could he have missed it? So how could he say that his tanayam is excluding her? He shouldn't have married her. He saw it. Amar Papa, the unread is latachas kakipos aroisha. It's like a stickle under her hair covering. V'zimnin the bischazer, v'zimnin lemischazer. He can say, well, you had covered it over when I went out with you. I didn't notice it. So therefore, when you're on our Zoom date, you put those fake sunglasses on as one of the features of Zoom, and that's pink where your wart was. So I was never able to see it. Amar Chista. The following halacha that I'm going to share, I heard from a great person, Umani Rab Shila, and that is Rab Shila, and that is as follows: Noshcha kelev, if one rachman was bitten by a dog, v'nasan mitzalekes, Rashi says shedishasham roisham mishachaysa amaka. I assume it's some type of scar. He had a wound, and then it healed up, but there's a zecher, there's a souvenir left. So I raise a mum, that's considered a mum. If a woman has a deep voice, like a man's voice, a woman's supposed to have a sweet voice and a beautiful look. So if she has a deep voice, in fact, that's a woman. I still remember there's a friend that I have. His wife is no longer alive, but every time I would call and she would pick up, I would say, "Hello, Yankee," because she sounded exactly like a man. And no, his name isn't Jackie. I still, every single time they album, every single time.
Remember the guy in Yeshiva that had the lady house?
No, I don't. Oh, that's right. It's Tani of Nasan Bira. Now, this Gemara you probably shouldn't say over at home. This is one of those Gemaras that if you're on speaker, maybe go to headphones. Bein dade isha tefach. If there's a tefach in between the two breasts of a woman. What about that? That's a good thing. It's a beautiful thing if a woman has a tefach in between her breasts. Amli Rabashi, how could you say that? Gabi Mumentanya. That's listed as one of the mumen. So therefore, if there's a tefach in between a woman's breasts, it's not nice. So how much is Nice. Amar Abaye shalosh etzbos. So if you think about this Gemara at first, it sounds like completely absurd. The Gemara is discussing the features of what makes a woman beautiful. I mean, what's going on over here? So I saw. He brings a. You know how when you get glasses, the optometrist has like a little ruler he puts over your eyes to measure the distance in between the centers of your eyes. So I imagine you bring that along on a date, like Shamil says. Not sure how well that would work out for you, but the Mefarshim say that the reason why the Gemara brings this up is because what if a person makes a t'nai? I'm only marrying a woman on manas that she's not that she's just of a mum, on manas that she's particularly beautiful. So then she has to meet all of these sizes. Tanya, Rabbi Nassan Omer, Kol Isha shedadeh gasim mishal chaver. A woman, and there's a shayla if this means she has one breast that's bigger than the other, or if it means she has unusually large breasts. Harei zamum, that's also a mum. The Chama Amar Shmuel, the Chama, how big is too much? The Chama Amar Maishi by Rei Yeshua by Levi Mishmei Yeshua by Levi Tefach. Tefach I think is a watermelon. Fact Gemara. Is there such a thing that a woman can have such a big chest? So Gemara of course it's possible. I saw an Arab woman who had such big breasts. She flipped them over her shoulder to the back, and she nursed her son who was behind her. So you see there's such a thing. Again, the Mefarshim asks, how does he see such a thing? There just he was walking the street and it was done in public. But the father he wouldn't be normally the place.
This is the shop teacher in Halton region.
What's that?
The shop teacher in Halton region.
I'm not sure what you're referring
to. Okay, current events.
Well, the Tzion Yomar Ish to Tzion they'll call him a Ben Tzion. They'll call him from a Yid from Yisroel. The Ish Yulabah, and he was born there. And he's going to build it up. And he's going to be built up. So we dash this pasuk. Not only normally, when are you considered a Polish guy if you came from Poland? When are you called an American if you came from America? But you can be called an Eretz Yisrael to Kayid, even if you don't live in Eretz Yisrael, you just long to be there. Someone who longs and yearns to be in Eretz Yisrael, he's also called a Ben Sion. He's also called an Eretz Yisrael. Like the Ramad used to say, Libi b'Mizrach. My heart is b'Mizrach. My heart is in Eretz Yisrael. Vani, but me personally, b'Soif Meir, I'm far away in the west. Amar Abaye, Zokt Abaye, v'chad minayu, one Eretz Yisrael to Kayid, because of Avir, Eretz Yisrael Machim, is Adav K'trei Minon, is as good as two as us. Amar Rava, v'chad minon kisalak lasam, but if we're from Chutz La'aretz, and we make Aliyah, and we go to Eretz Yisrael, then Adav K'trei Minayu will be as smart as two Eretz Yisrael. So sure, we have a disadvantage. They're like two of us. But if we go to Eretz Yisrael, then we get the Eretz Yisrael, we're the Eretz Yisrael Machab on steroids. How do we know that? The Rabbi Yirmiyah, the Chihava, when Rabbi Yirmiyah was here in Chutz La'aretz, Lo Yavayad my coming Rabbanon. He didn't even understand this year. He saw the Lahasam, but when he moved to Eretz Yisrael, Karilon Bavloi Tipshoi. He started calling us Bavloi Tipshoi. A regular Eretz Yisrael doesn't call us Bavloi Tipshoi. But he called us Bavloi Tipshoi because Vice Techois, he became so smart being in Eretz Yisrael that he looked at us as Tipshoi. Zogt Helika Mishnah Vayter. Hayiba Mumen v'Aida b'Veisavia. What if she had Mumen, but she was still b'Veisavia? No Nisun was done. She's still an Arusa. So the halacha is, now she has a movement, and the husband says, "Oh, I don't want her," and the father says, "What do you mean you don't want her? These women weren't there when you made kedushin; they came now. So it's nistap chosadeyu. Your wife got this problem. Your wife grew a wart. When I gave her to you, when I accepted kedushin for her, she had no warts. The wart now shows up. So that's your problem. You can't nullify the kedushin because of that. So the halach is." The father has to bring a raya that it happened. So Rashi says, he sees this word on her head, he doesn't want to make nesuin. So the father's going to say, well, then you got to pay ksuba. The halacha is the father has to prove, in fact, that these mumen came later. Zok to Gemara. So it would be incumbent on the father to bring that right.
You can't find like choice in this situation.
What would have happened after he bought it?
Had I known that she would grow warts, then I would never.
So had I known that the car would lose its transmission, I would have bought it.
Why is that any different than what happened with Yosy? Had I known that he would become such a big problem for him?
For a neder, you can make a pesach. You don't find you can make a pesach for transactions. Could you imagine if you could be shoyl on every transaction you make? Business will go haywire. Zok to Gemara. Zok to Gemara. What about if it's nichnas or l'shusabal, which means nisus? He already made nisuin, and now he sees this in her. He wants to divorce her, and he wants to say, "I'm not going to pay ksuba because she has a mumen." So the halach is tzarich lavi raya she'ad shaloi nisarsa hayuba mumenelu. Then it's incumbent on the husband to bring a raya that these mumen were there before he took her, and therefore it's a mekatos. Well, you mekla mekatos. Divir Reb Meir, that's the sheet of Reb Meir. Where do we say these halachas that you have to prove what happened is b'mumen shebeseiser? So when could the husband taina on mumen that I didn't know about it? These are only mumen shebeseiser. He can say, how was I supposed to know about it? Turning over onto Amud Beis Mishnah, Aval the mumen shebegali. But if these are mumen that are on uncovered places, honor, and he could never say that I didn't notice these things before, because they're b'mumen shebegali. Any yochelitu. And even if it's mumen shebeseiser, in mishmerchetz ba'isa here, if there's a bathhouse in that city, which everyone would typically frequent, meaning he would have been able to send his relatives to go to the bathhouse when she was there and find out if she has any mumen shebeseiser. So then, mumen shebeseiser any yochalitnoin mipnei shu vaytke b'krayvaisa. He for sure had his female relatives check her out, and the fact that he took her in is a raya that he was satisfied and he knows about any moment that she might have. Zok Gemara, time of the Maisya Avrai. So from the beginning of the Mishnah, it says that if before the husband made Nisuim, the husband discovered mumen, the father has to prove that these mumen were not there, in fact, before the kedushin. The mumen only came after the kedushin. So Davka, if the father brings a raya, haloi ma'asiyah of raya. If the father didn't bring a raya, habal mehemet, the baal would be believed to say that these mumen were there from before. Zok Rashi mehemet the amar hoyel v'sofaku imitasoi vimlav. Since it's a suffix, if she fooled him by concealing her mumen, or maybe not, hamid mumen al chaskasoi. We look at the chazaka of the money of the ksuba. He's holding on to the money now. You want to be moitzi mechaveroi. You want to force him to pay you ksuba. You need to bring a raya, in fact, that it was nistabchos adei. And this takes us back to the sugya we had a while ago. So it's going to be a nice reminder of a sugya whatever a while ago. Mani Rabbi Yeshua. This must be going according to Rabbi Yeshua, the Omar who said, "Loi mi pia anu chayim." We cannot trust her. And Rashi says, Mani Rabbi Yeshua, the Omar beper kama. We had this sugya in the first pair. He oimerish misheres tani nanasti. There was a question of the ksuba. So she claims that she was nenas after the erison, which means nistab chosadeyu. But who oimer ad shaloy erestiach. And he said, no, you were not a basula. I married you al das that you were a basula, and it turned out you were a nensa before I made the erison. So the question is, we had a machlokes who's believed. Rabbi Yeshua said, Lo mi pi anu chayim. Rabbi Yeshua said, we don't believe her, and we assume that she was a bu'ula before the erison, and it's a mekachtos. Shetei menes elahamid mammon al chaskasoi. Put the money al chaskasoi, meaning he's holding on to the money of a tzuba. We don't say that she has a chazaka on her guf. Her guf started as a basula. Since we're not sure at the moment of the erison, was this woman a basula or was she a buula? Hamid guf al cheskasa shel koydem l'chein. Let's say her guf was b'cheskasa, and we'll say at the time of the erusin she was a basula. By know the basula, she was born a basula. So let's say she remains a basula. But you don't say that over there. We said and we say that he doesn't have to pay out the ksuba according to Rabbi Shua. So v'hachanami in our mission as well. We shouldn't say that she was born without the moment. The shayla when these moment occurred, so we won't say you go b'sa chazaka that the moment occurred after the marriage occurred and there was the stop chasadeyu, like the father claims. Rather, we say he has a chazaka on his money, on his ksuba, and he can say that this is a mekach tos. I am not giving her any ksuba. Ema seifa, zok the seifa, nichnas al shusabal. Once he already made nesuin, there sorach lahavi raya. There it's already incumbent on him to bring a raya. But guess what? After he takes her in, he's still a muhsik on the ksuba. So what changed? Time of the ma'aseh abal raya. Here we're saying it's incumbent on the husband to bring a raya that the women were there before. Haloi ma'aseh abal raya. If he wouldn't bring a raya that those women were there before, ha'av nemo, the father's nemo to say that the woman only came after the kedushin and there was the stop chasadeyu. What about his chazaka of moment? Obviously, it's also the Gamliel Daman and Menace. This must be following the shita of Gamliel that her chazaka that she doesn't have these women is going to trump. Zakrashi also Gamliel Amar Hasam Hina Menace. The chazaka the gufa adifa. So clearly, the machlekes, the shayla between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Shua is her cheskas guf adif, and therefore he has to pay her the mois ksuba, or is his chazaka on the moment adif, and he doesn't have to pay her the mois ksuba. Rabbi Lazar, you're right. Taver, you have to break this Mishnah in half because it's a steer between the ratio and the Seifa. So the first comment in our Mishnah is following the Shita of Rabbi Yeshua, and the second Shita of our Mishnah is following the Shita of Rabbi Gamliel. Amar Rabbi lo temi Rabbi Yeshua. I'm sorry, lo temi Rabbi Yeshua. Lo also bosa chazaka the guf klal. So Rabbi said, and this is not another teretz. Rabbi is just making a comment on Rabbi Yeshua. Don't think just because Rabbi Yeshua paskin that we say and we don't follow her cheskes guf. Don't say he never follows the cheskes guf, because sometimes even Rabbi Yeshua will follow the cheskes guf. As Rashi says, like the Rabbi Yeshua, also bosa chazaka the guf klal. I feel b'makom she'ein cheskes mammon I made this negda lakisha. Rather, if only when there's a cheskes mammon against the cheskes guf, that's when you don't follow it. But if there's no cheskes mammon against the cheskes guf, then you would follow the cheskes guf. Ella, kilei azul Rabbi Shua b'asa cheskes gufa is heichadika chazaka de mammon. That's only when her chazaka of her guf is up against his chazaka of holding on to the mammon. Like in our case. But in a different case, the lega chazaka de mamana, where there's no question of money involved, where there's no chazaka of mammon that's opposing your chazaka guf, there even Rabbi Shua is might that also Rabbi Shua basa chazaka de guf. The Tanya we looked in the brayso. In Baharis koydem l'sar lavan tamei. The halacha is in the Hilchos Nega that first the skin has to become discolored, and only then the ser lavan tzomach, and only then. After the only after the nega occurs is the hair supposed to grow. That's a siman of tumah. So in beharis kodim l'sar lavan tumah. If first the beharis came, then the hair grew into it, it's tumah. But in sar lavan kodim l'beharis, but at first there was a hair, and then around the hair grew the nega tahor. That would be tahor because that's not how a nega is formed. Suffix. What if we're not sure what came first? Tumah, it will be tumah. But Rabbi Yeshua Aimer Keha. Rabbi Yeshua says the loch in this case is Keha. My Keha. What does the word Keha mean? Omerava Keha Tar. So you Keha Tar is a Rashi. Hareyu Kekeha Hanega Mareyu. It's as if the nega became lighter, which is also one of the simanim of Tahira Shehu Tar. So Zok Gemara, you see over here that she has a cheskes agov that she's not tamei, and this suffix tumah occurred because we don't know if the hair was there first or if the nega was there first, and Rabbi Yeshua says she's tar. So you see, when there's no chazak of mammon opposing the cheskas aguf, we'll follow her cheskas aguf, and she remains tar. Rav wants to offer a different shot in our Mishnah. So we had a problem with our Mishnah. the beginning of the Mishnah is Mashal like Rabbi Yeshua, where the burden of proof is on the father. And the Sefer of the Mishnah seems to say like Rabbi Gamliel, where the burden of proof is on the husband because she has a cheskes aguf. Zok Rava, Rava says L'olam is going according to Rabbi Gamliel that her cheskes aguf is stronger. So why in the Reisha does the father have to bring a raya that her moment only came after the kedushin? Rav Amar Reisha kan nimtzu v'kan hoyi. There's a new svara that since this is the point of where these women were found in his house, therefore we say that these women started in his house, in the father's house. But Sefer Nami kan nimtzu v'kan hoyi. In the Sefer, where did he find the woman? After the Nesuin. So that we say, since they were found here, this is where we say they came. Zok Rashi, Rava Omar Reisha Kan Nimtzu Kan Hoyu, Rava Mahadir Lo Ukma Kula Karaba Gamliel. Rava wants to say that our whole Mishnah is following one Tana, the Tana Rabbi Gamliel. Because we actually pass it like Rabbi Gamliel. So it's more nicha to learn that our Mishnah is going according to the Tana whom we pass in life. And he says, La'olim chazaka de gufa adif. Really, chazaka de gufa is adif, and therefore the father should not have the burden of proof that the woman came later. So why, in fact, does the father have the burden of proof? For Reisha Taima, Mishum the Kiva and the Bevei Savia Nimtzu Hamuman, since the woman were found while she's still in her father's household, Isra Cheskosai Da'av, the chazak of the father saying that she did not have these women until they were found is Isra. The Ikalamemer, there's an argument to make that Kan Hayu Koidim Harrison, that they were there before. In the first parak, that's also the case, where we say the case was when she was already in the Rishus Habal, and that's where so only where did the Rabbi Gamliel say you go basar cheskes aguf? That's if you don't have it working against you. So there, where did he find out that she was a beula? After the nesuin. So therefore, we say kanim to kanoyu. It happened after he married her. But in the case of our Mishnah, where were the women found while she was still living at home? And therefore, there's a reisa on the chazal. Eisvei abai, fact abai. Nichnesal l'rishus habal. Once she went into the rishus habal, sarich lahavi raya. The Baal has to bring a raya. Sha'ad shaloitis ares, that even before the Erison, hayuba mumen elu, these women were already there, and therefore vayamekhay mekachtos. So what is the Brisa saying? Ad shaloitis ares in, he has to prove that these occurred before the Erison, mishitis ares loy, but he doesn't have to prove it's not enough if he proves that they were already visible. It's not enough for him to prove that these women were already there. B'shas the Nesuin, b'shas the Erison, after the Erison, he has to prove that these women were there before the Erison. But Vamai, let him just prove that they were there after Erison, but still b'vei Savia, and lema kanimtu v'kanoyu. So Krashi Mishinis Arsaloi, it may be about a raya. If the husband's a raya, Sharoba Muman Alolu, Mishinis Arsa, that we already saw these women in her when she was Nisaris, he oide b'vei Savia, and she's still in her father's household. Lav Rai, that wouldn't be a raya, right? The raya has to be that it was before the Erison. But the time of Mishum Kanim to Kanhoyu, if you hold of Rav Svara, that we say that the woman came in the household that they were found in. Well, then I b'vei Savia nimtu. Once he proves that they were already women there when she was Nisarsa, but still b'vei Savia, so he already proved that they happened in her father's household. Ella al korchach, what are you going to be forced to say? Reisha v'seifa pligi. You have to say that the Reisha and the Seifa of our Mishnah are arguing. Ba'afilu bo l'din ba'oide b'vei Savia, even if they came to din while she was in the father's household, Isle l'tana the Seifa, Dina Menes. The Tana would still hold that she would be Nemenes. So you see that the Tana of the Seifa would not hold of Kanimtu Kan Hoyu. So Zog to Gemara, Actually, desires in, we should desires loy, it should be enough for the husband to bring a raya that she had these women even after the erishin, but bevesavia. Mamai lema kan nimtu the kanhoy. Omerlei, so he answered, Mishinis Arsa. So Rashi Mishinis Arsa. Omerlei Olam Reisha Mishum kan nimtu kanhoy. Really, this far of the Reisha that the father has to bring the raya is because we found the woman in his household. We'll say that they occurred in his household even earlier. The reason why that Mishanis Arsa is because once it's Nisarsa, there's two things. If he brought Adam that saw the woman in this woman already, Mishanis Arsa Bevesavia, when she was in her father's household, but she was Mereses, Mishum Hachi Lav Rayahi. The reason why it wouldn't be a raya, and the Brisa says that he has to bring a raya that these women were in her before the Eresin, is because the Ikatarti Liyafas Koicha. There's two things working in her favor. Chada is Hamad Guf al Cheskasai. First, she has the Cheskas Aguf that she was born without woman. First of all, she has a Cheskas Aguf that she did not have these women, and therefore, at the time of the Eresin, this Chazakas Aguf says that she didn't have those women. The entire Hura Chazaka, and if you want to argue that it's Hura Chazaka, Hoyel the Kanimtu, because Lemaisa we found these women while she was still in her father's household. Chazaka ein Adam Shoyse Bekois Ella Imkein Boikai. At the end of the day, we have another Chazaka here. What's other Chazaka? That a woman will not make kedushin on a man will not make kedushin on a woman before he checks her out. Afilu kan hayu kodim kedushin, even if they were here before kedushin, zeh shechnisa lechuppah, he brought her into the chuppah. V'zui shtiyas hakayis, that's called shtiyas hakayis. So since the husband made a chuppah on her, v'yudua shabbatka, that in and of itself is support that he was boydekar v'noidaloi v'rav v'nefais. He must have seen them before and accepted them. So let's see the Gemara inside. Zok the Gemara. If you're going to say kanim to kanhaya, why isn't it enough that he could bring a raya that the women were there even after Eresin? Amalei mishinis arsham mishum the ikol memer chazaka eino dem shoysa bekais ella imkim boytka. We have a chazaka that a person wouldn't take his wife in unless he was boydiker first. The higher rav and if so she has another argument. Her other argument is from the fact that you made nesuin, it proves that you had already accepted. So first of all, I have a chazaka, I didn't have these women, and even if you want to say I had these women, you accepted them. In fact, even if he brings a raya that they happened before the Eresin, he should still be mechuyev to accept her, because if the whole time it is that he saw it and he knew about it and he accepted her, so what's his taina that you had the woman before in Tzemekach Tos? You have the same taina that you accepted me with them. El Amrina, we say chazaka ein adam mefayis b'mumen. There's also a chazaka that a person will not be mefayis b'mumen. So we have a lot of countering chazakas here. On the one hand, we have a chazaka that if he took her in, he checked her out. But on the other hand, we have a chazaka that says that a person wouldn't be happy with a woman who's woman. We have even if he finds it afterwards, you have a chazaka not mefayis b'mumen. There's once she's in a russo, there's two things. There's chazaka of hemed aguf al cheskasai. She has a chazaka that she never had moment. You also have a chazaka of ein adam shoyse b'kois elam kem goitkai v'hay ra v'nefayisu. So you have two chazakas. When you have two chazakas. When he only proves that she had the woman while she was on a rusa, there's two chazakas in her favor. A, there's a cheskas above, and B, you have the chazaka that he made nesun on her. So my amr, what are you going to counter that chazaka with? Chazaka ain't other mafais per moment. You want to counter it with the chazaka that a person wouldn't be mafais per moment, and therefore he didn't accept it. Havachada b'makom tarti. You have one argument against two arguments. You have the argument of ein other mafais per moment that's going against the two chazakas that she has a cheskas aguf, and she has a chazaka that ein other shoyse b'kois elikim b'kois. Chada b'makom tarti lo yaminon. And when there's one chazaka, b'makom two chazakas, her two chazakas win over his one chazaka. Zok Rashi, chada b'makom tarti. So Rashi asked the obvious kasha. We're missing the cheskas moment. All of these are lomdish questions, all these chazakas. But at the end of the day, he's still a muksuk in the moment. So Rashi, the habit moment on chazkas, so lo yamrinon. Lo yamrinon didn't have a nami hachatarti. Don't say it's 2 against 2, because along with his chazaka that he wouldn't accept a woman with movement, he also is the muksuk on the money. The b'makom chazaka the gufa, chazaka the moment of love to me. So now Rabbi is saying a new chiddush. And whenever there's a chazaka of a guf, chazaka of moment doesn't count. Okay, let's stop here because we still have to run up to do slichas, even though we have 2 dots coming, but I don't want to be late to slichas. So we'll have tomorrow. 6:40 again.
You're not saying it?